Xbox On. Welcome to Xbox On, the podcast with one host about one console, Xbox. I'm said host Jesse DeRosa, and on today's episode, we'll be talking about the latest Xbox news for the week of February 18th, 2021, including Xbox is releasing a first-party headset that looks really cool and is sold out everywhere. Xbox Series X will begin supporting frame rate boosts for older Xbox One titles. Halo Wars is dead, and 343 likes how sad that makes you, and more. Welcome to week 89 of Xbox On. We've got a little bit of a different setup this week. Not really anything that you'll notice, just something different for me because right now my girlfriend is using the computer desk where I normally sit down and have my monitors and everything set up for the podcast, but she's got a new job and she's sometimes working late because she works on Utah hours like some freaking person who lives in Utah, and that's fine. I've been relegated to the bedroom, so now I'm sitting here in the bedroom on the surface just with this makeshift setup. But you know what? I like this because it means if we can make Xbox On just as good as it always is, and it is good, if we can make it just the same as it always is under these harsh conditions, under these depraved and desperate conditions, then I think that's a testament to what a great show this is. And if you'll just allow me to pat myself on the back, I just want to let you guys know I don't care what computer desk is being taken up at the time or what the people in Utah need at any given time. I will always make a place, make a time, and find a way to get this show out to you when I fucking promise I would. Which, as a reminder, is every Thursday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. You can go over to youtube.com. It's where everyone likes to comment, or it's where people who like to comment go to comment. Why do I bring that up? Because, well, we're going to start off the show with our comment, or our favorite section, or the section that I at least spend the most time on, which is the comments. But before I can talk about the comments, I actually want to just start with a little, please, it's been a long day of work. Allow me to just ease into this. Please stop rushing me. I can feel you rushing me. There's a lot of pressure on me right now. I need you to stop. Okay, thank you. So yeah, I was driving home today from work, and I got a notification on my phone. I was at a red light, of course, because who the hell texts and drive? Texting and driving is for losers. But I got a notification that the new Nintendo Direct had just started, and I was like, you know what? I've seen people talking about this, today, Wednesday, is the day of this recording. A lot of people have been talking about this new Nintendo Direct, how apparently it's supposed to be like, a big deal since Nintendo hasn't really done jack shit for the past year. All they did was release Animal Crossing, sell way too many copies of it, and get all the praise in the world for being Nintendo. Meanwhile, they've done literally nothing else and just been like constantly praised for being the greatest company of all time. I think they even won a Nobel Peace Prize for simply not releasing any fucking games in 2020. So anyway, I bring this up because I'm just like, you know what? I shit on Nintendo a lot, and I feel like I've spent no time with Nintendo the past year, and maybe that's just because Nintendo doesn't put out games anymore, but I was like, fuck it. Let me watch this Direct. Let me feed into the hype a little bit. Like, I want to believe the shit I'm seeing on Twitter. There's rumors saying, oh, this is going to be like an E3 quality stream. They have so much news to talk about because it's been so long since they've done a Direct. And I'm hoping, I'm like, let me drink some of this Kool-Aid. Let me fall into this. Even if I'm going to be duped into believing this, like, I want to believe it for a little bit because I want to go back to when I was a bigger Nintendo fan and when Nintendo actually put video games out and actually like made new video games instead of just re-releasing old games. I'm like, all right, let's just pretend. Let's just tune in. Maybe they'll show Metroid Prime 4. Maybe they'll do something cool. Maybe they'll put out a new game. Maybe they'll stop harping on the same 3 franchises and use one of their other 800 franchises they have that they refuse to acknowledge. Like, maybe this won't just be more Super Smash Bros. And Fire Emblem. And so, I turn it on. I'm like, here I am. I'm driving. I'm sitting in traffic anyway. I might as well just listen to the audio, hear the announcements. And, God, like, just one after another. It's like stupid indie game, port of a Wii U game, some fucking free-to-play game you've already been playing on PlayStation or Xbox for like 4 years now. Update to Animal Crossing. Update to this other game we put out 4 years ago, which was a remake of another game that we put on Wii U that no one ever bought. And then it's just like all this like cascading bullshit of like, all right, Nintendo, let me get this straight. So you haven't done shit since last March when you put out Animal Crossing, which, in all fairness, even though it wasn't my game, my cup of tea, it was a very big release for you. It sold incredibly well. It's an amazingly popular game. It's a massive success for you guys. I get it. but you haven't done shit since that game. You haven't talked about anything. You haven't put anything out. You literally do nothing. You just sit there, you smell your own farts, and you sell millions and millions of Switch units for doing nothing. Like, show me a fucking game. And they did what Nintendo does best, and they did absolutely nothing. In fact, literally the only announcement, I mean, they're remaking Skyward Sword, which I guess was just a given. It was only a matter of time before they did that. And technically, Skyward Sword's my favorite Zelda game, which I know is a hot take, but I only bring that up to say, I guess that's cool, right? But even that was kind of lame because they just jinxed everyone. Or not jinxed, but they just fucking duped everyone. They were like, hey guys, we're making that Breath of the Wild 2 that you all care about. Well, we're not here to talk to you about that. We're actually here to tell you that we're porting over a Wii game that only Jesse likes to the Switch, and fuck you. It just consistently blows my mind. It's like I haven't seen how the internet's reacting to the Nintendo Direct because I got home from work, quickly shower, get ready, record the podcast. So I'm not really tuned into how people are reacting to it. But I'm just thinking to myself, it's like, dude, literally, if Xbox puts out a show half as bad as this, dude, last May, Microsoft did that stream for the Xbox Series X, and it was the third-party stream. It was the one where they showed off like Stalker 2 and Scarlet Nexus and all those fucking third-party games and Second Extinction and The Ascent and all these games. I remember when that stream happened, everyone was like, holy fucking shit, you blew it, Microsoft, you showed no gameplay, it was all announcement trailers, no gameplay, fuck you, Xbox sucks, PS5, all this shit. And I'm just sitting there like, dude, I mean, fair criticism that they didn't show a lot of gameplay, but they announced a lot of fucking cool games at that event. A lot of games that I'm still really excited to play. It's like, we're so quick to shit on Xbox for putting out a bunch of new information about games we've never heard of, about unique titles we've never seen before. But, if it's not 25 minutes of new Halo Infinite gameplay footage, it's just automatically shit, right? But fucking Nintendo's out here like, hey, we're putting Super Mario Brothers hat in Animal Crossing. That's right. You can now put yourself in even greater debt to Tom Nook by walking your stupid ass all the way over to his shop and buying a Super Luigi Brothers hat for 14 billion bells. And that's the new update. Please play that shit for another 40 hours because we have no other games to announce today. And everyone's like, simply brilliant. And they're like, but wait, there's more. You know how we always do Fire Emblem and we always do Smash Brothers? Well, we're putting our 50th, in celebration of our 50th Fire Emblem character to come to Smash, we're releasing 50 new amiibo of all the Fire Emblem characters, and they're exclusive to Toys R Us. Fuck you. And it's just like, what the fuck? I'm watching this thing, I'm like, this is why I haven't touched my fucking Nintendo Switch in a year. This is why I don't play this thing. That being said, I'm thinking this weekend I might cave and download that new Super Mario 3D World Bowser's Fury game because it does look pretty good. But still, that's like a 3-hour little expansion pass to a re-release of a Wii U game. This is not a new game, Nintendo. It's again, this is an Xbox podcast, if you can believe it or not. But I wanted to start today's rant as a heartbroken, just butthurt ex-Nintendo lover. What the fuck are you doing, Nintendo? Now, I'm leaving out the biggest announcement here, which is that they did tease and announce Splatoon 3 coming out in 2022, which I'm very excited about. I like Splatoon. I actually like Splatoon a lot. I like both the first and the second game. I know that's kind of seen as more one of those Sonic the Hedgehog tier, cringy 13-year-old sweaty Naruto kid kind of games, but I actually really enjoy Splatoon, and I'm looking forward to playing the next one. So that's a cool announcement, but again, it's like Nintendo. Splatoon is a relatively new, I think it's their only relatively new IP they work with. And that's cool that they ever even made a new IP anytime in the past 20 years. But it's what the fuck are you doing by putting out a third Splatoon in the time since we've, in all that time we haven't seen a new F-Zero, a new Metroid, a new anything. You just don't put out shit. You just ignore all your other characters. You're like, hey, here's Smash Brothers. Everyone's here, but only 3 of them get their own video games. It's like, what? Whatever. I just want to put that out there. Fuck you, Nintendo. Why don't you just appeal specifically to my nostalgia? And Pokemon is lame. So that's what I want to start out this week with. A little rant about Nintendo, a former love of mine, someone who still hurts to think about. But with that said, guys, let's jump into our comments section. I steered you towards the comments and then steered you away, and now I'm steering you back to the comments because I like to think of Xbox On as a drunk driver. We are simply never on track, and if we're lucky, we might even get home alive. So, our first comment this week, and remember, if you ever want to comment, Go over to youtube.com. Second Best Gaming is my channel. You'll find the Xbox On playlist there. You click on the latest episode, leave a comment, say something heinous and crazy like Taco Bell is sodium free, and then I'll read your comment on the air, and then you'll get lots of likes and possibly become even more famous than you already are. And then our first comment here comes from Mr. EA's King 117, who says, speaking of Taco Bell, EA's King wants to start this week, and this is what he wants to start the week off with. I wanted to start off shitting about Nintendo, and EA's King wants to say, I've never eaten Taco Bell. Don't cancel me. So I'm not going to make again, I don't have the authority to cancel people or to ban them or to do any of these things. That's all up to Tsurugi. I'm putting canceling people, I'm lumping that in the same tier as being able to ban someone. So we'll leave that up to Tsurugi. If Tsurugi would like to comment on this and weigh in any way, it's your decision whether or not we're going to cancel EA's King 117 here for saying he's never eaten at Taco Bell. And to the audience at large, why don't you guys weigh in on it? Vote. Leave a comment. Tell me, cancel or don't cancel EA's King. Hashtag cancel or hashtag spare. What are we going to do here, EA's King? Never eaten at Taco Bell. Now, if I'm not mistaken, EA's King, you dwell in the Canadian region of the North American continent. Am I correct? I believe you're from Canada, right? So you guys have Taco Bell up there, I'm pretty sure. You're not that fucking weird and foreign up there. You probably put maple syrup on all your tacos, but I assume you at least have Taco Bell. Am I correct? So, what's your excuse? And even if you didn't have Taco Bell in Canada, which again I'm pretty sure you do. In fact, I know you have Taco Bell in Canada. What would be your excuse? Like, you just can't make the drive to the U.S. simply for Taco Bell? Because that sounds like a pretty stupid excuse. So, fix it. Make it happen. In fact, go back in time to when you were a child and then eat Taco Bell, because it's ridiculous. I don't even know if your body would be able to handle the complex palate offered by the Taco Bell menu. Your body might simply reject it. And that's not to the fault of the quality of the food that Taco Bell serves. That's because your body isn't worthy, because you didn't train it properly from a young age. You need to develop your body for these kinds of things, okay? This is why they start feeding them young. This is why my mom took me to Taco Bell when I was young. She said, this boy is growing. Look at this. His bones are weak, but we'll fix that. We'll get him the Taco Bell Kids menu. For some stupid reason, it comes with a really dumb toy. It comes with those little beans with the fucking little magnet thing inside of it. Why? Who thinks that's a good idea for a toy? What the fuck is this? But that wasn't the point. The tacos were good, and they made me big and strong. And EA's King, I'm assuming you're weak. You've never had Taco Bell. That probably means you're fucking weak. All right, our next comment here comes from Mojo, first-time commenter. It says, first-time commenting. Love the podcast. The realness is refreshing in an already saturated podcast market. I currently know 2 friends and a cousin with detrimental Mountain Dew addictions. One's addicted to original Mountain Dew, one's into Voltage, and the other one's into Whiteout. Should I switch from my favorite Dr. Pepper? Who would win in a fight? Okay, well, speaking of starting them young so they can grow nice and strong, I mean, here we go. Here's a perfect example. You get 4 kids. One of them's on Dr. Pepper, one of them's on original Mountain Dew, and one of them's on Voltage, and then the fourth one is on Whiteout. Okay, simple enough. We've already tiered it there. They're all pretty decently strength children. You put these kids up against kids who are raised drinking water and milk. Fuck it, those kids don't stand a chance. The kid who just drank milk, he's gonna get his fucking bones crushed. He's gonna get smashed in the face because he doesn't stand a fucking chance against a kid who grew up on Mountain Dew Voltage. That shit's pure lightning. You punch a kid in the face, you find a kid who drank vitamin D, vitamin milk or whatever his whole goddamn life, and then you sock that kid in the face with your fist, knowing that you were raised on Mountain Dew Voltage. What do you think's gonna fucking happen? The static shock right there. You're gonna blow that kid's brain in. He's gonna electrocute. You're gonna fucking shock that kid. They're gonna make a Marvel supervillain out of you for doing that, because that's the kind of thing you'll get out of drinking Mountain Dew Voltage. So if we're simply tiering them, we know Whiteout's at the top because Whiteout is just a god tier drink. So the kid who's gonna win the fight is Whiteout, because what's he gonna do? He's gonna fucking avalanche. He's gonna white out the whole group. He's gonna avalanche, and just snow's gonna crush everyone. And that's kind of an untimely joke because a lot of the country right now is currently fucked because of snowstorms. But that's besides the point. Whiteout's gonna win. Voltage is gonna be second because it's got the fucking thunderbolts and the Zeus shit. So you got that power. So you're a Marvel supervillain, as we've said before. Now the original Dew, I think that's pretty much like your Titan in Destiny. It's like your It's like your warrior class in an RPG. It is your all-around perfect fighter. You know, the guy who's like addicted to Mountain Dew, like classic Mountain Dew. That's your guy. He's not the best, but he's like all around pretty good. He's a great fighter. He's a great defender. He can learn skills like masonry and magic or whatever the fuck it is these RPG guys do. He can learn it all. He's a jack of all trades, but he's a master of none because he's a classic do guy. So he can do it all, but he's not going to be a specialist by any stretch of the imagination. Now, your Dr. Pepper guy, and don't get me wrong, Dr. Pepper's a fine drink. It's a great drink, in fact. If you go to a restaurant and it's a first date and I'm with you, we're on this first date for some reason, and you order a Dr. Pepper, there's going to be a second date. That's how good Dr. Pepper is. But is it Mountain Dew good? Hell no. So the Dr. Pepper guy, chances are he might get a good fist in there. You know, he might get a good punch or two. He might kill. He'll definitely knock out the guy drinking water or milk. But the guy drinking Mountain Dew, Dr. Pepper, more like Doctor. I knocked this guy's fucking lights out because he drinks not Mountain Dew. So that's, I think, how that would go down in a fight. Thank you, Mojo, for commenting in. Wonderful question. I appreciate you listening to the podcast, and I appreciate your kind words. Our next comment here is Mr. EA's King, who thinks he deserves some redemption after that Taco Bell stunt he pulled, who says, why play games in a car when you can play in your house, and it's already forbidden to text or call while driving, so playing Xbox is a big no. Don't attack me. All right, EA's King here is referring to my comments last week. I was talking about Teslas. I was talking about how the new Tesla interiors have a really powerful in-car display that has like super like high-end PC gaming specs that can play games like Witcher 3 and even nicer games. And I was talking about how Microsoft should try to put an Xbox cloud streaming app in Tesla cars. That would be a huge get for them because having Xbox in your Tesla sounds like a really natural evolution if they're going to try to put xCloud everywhere. And I think it'd be really, really awesome and a huge win for gaming in cars, which is, you know, something we're starting to see emerge. Now, EA's King, allow me to elaborate. I'm not talking about putting Xbox cloud streaming in every car. I'm not talking about walking into a Ford Edge and be like, here I am driving my gas-powered car down the highway like a fucking moron, and I'm playing Mass Effect 2 via backwards compatibility, not the re-release, because I prefer the bad graphics. And here I am, just 75 on the highway, and I'm playing Mass Effect 2. I'm finding out what's happening here. I'm Professor Shepard, or whatever the character's name is. And that's not what I was calling for. Again, we're talking strictly about Teslas. We're talking about electric cars. Electric cars have to charge. So if you're on a road trip and you got to stop at a supercharger station, you got to charge your car, you park at the charge station, you plug your car up, and you sit there for like 30 minutes to an hour charging your car. Okay, so you're not driving. You're not driving, EA's King. In this scenario, you are sitting there in your car trying to kill an hour of time while your car charges. So you whip out your Xbox gamepad that you keep in your center console, and you pull up your Xbox app on your car, and you play Xbox for an hour while stationary, parked with your car charging, while you wait to get back on your way. That's what I'm talking about. Although alternatively, because the way Tesla is doing gaming in their cars, the other alternative solution would be you could have like the passenger or the backseat passengers playing Xbox while the driver drives. So in none of these scenarios am I talking about the driver playing Xbox while he drives the car. Of course I'm not promoting that. That's a horrible idea. But in all fairness, Tesla's ultimate plan, their ultimate goal, since what they're really working towards here is fully autonomous self-driving vehicles. You know, the end goal is that humans won't have to drive or monitor the driving situation of their car at all, so that you will be able to play Xbox or video games while you are in the car, even if you're in the driver's seat, because you won't be driving, the car will be. But we're years and years away from that. So that's not really what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about playing the goddamn Xbox app, getting some Forza Horizon 4 in there while you're charging your car. God damn it, it's so hard to explain. But thank you for listening. My brother comes in and says, I wonder if ZeniMax being put in a different category, referring back to the story last week when they were talking about the name Vault, which they might brand ZeniMax under. I wonder if being put under a different category like Vault kills the rumors of a different studio making the next Fallout game. I say this because it sounds like they really want to impress us on the idea that ZeniMax really is its own beast, and Microsoft just basically bought permanent Game Pass rights. Thoughts? Well, we know, Phil Spencer said, well, first of all, we don't know. We don't know shit, because all this stuff is still up in the air and nothing's really inked just quite yet. So with nothing being really truly official, we don't know. But we can recall that Phil Spencer said, essentially, they just want to let ZeniMax continue to operate on its own as it was. So the thing is, you know, Bethesda Bethesda Studios, and Bethesda Softworks or whatever, and Machine Games and Tango Gameworks and all these studios need an umbrella to go over. But ZeniMax doesn't really make sense because ZeniMax is like a parent company, and you don't really need a parent company for all these brands and all these teams when you have Microsoft as the parent brand. So it renders ZeniMax kind of useless to be like, okay, so we have all these different studios, and the parent company is ZeniMax that houses all those studios. And then the parent company of that parent company is Microsoft or is Xbox, and then the parent company of that parent company is Microsoft. It's like, that just sounds like one too many middlemen. So I think the idea here is that by rebranding it something like Vault, what you do is you give it like a name, a vague name to kind of categorize this group of developers, this team or this series of in-house teams at Microsoft, but you don't put an official like banner over it. So I guess what I mean is like ZeniMax is an actual like parent company that like actually publishes and oversees and maintains the portfolio of all these studios. It's like an actual overseer parent company brand here, right? Vault is less of that and it's more just a name. So it's like saying Vault is just referring to a group of developers, but the parent company would be Xbox. So I think the idea here is, how can we delete the redundancy of having ZeniMax and Xbox when we could just, how about we delete that redundancy by folding it all under Xbox, but still mentally and verbally differentiating that group of developers by referring to that umbrella as Vault. So it's more of like a mental differentiation, so that for press and for the market and players and stuff, we can understand that like, oh, well, Tango and Machine Games and those guys, those are part of like the Vault brand. That's like the old ZeniMax guys. That's like the old Bethesda people. So like that's kind of like off in its own corner. It's kind of like Pixar, right? It's like Pixar isn't owned by a parent company called like fucking Future Movies plus Steve Jobs Incorporated Holdings Association, and then that's owned by Disney. It's like, no, it's kind of redundant. It's like Pixar, and that's not really a good example because Pixar isn't an umbrella which has many, many studios underneath it, but it is like, there's Pixar and then they work on different movies, but they want to differentiate it from Disney. They didn't just buy Pixar and then take all those, all that talent at Pixar and be like, now you guys just make Disney movies. They're like, no, we want to keep the brands separated. So Vault is more of just a brand to keep everything kind of compartmentalized where they want it, but not have an actual full-fledged parent company whose job is to oversee it, if that makes sense. That's my 2 cents on it, but again, we don't know anything, and I sure as hell, as you just heard me fumbling through my words, clearly don't know shit about how business works, so it's hard for me to really gauge what they mean by that, but if I had to guess with my limited knowledge in on the situation and both in general, I would guess Vault is just kind of like a term more than like an actual organization or umbrella group, if that makes sense. Anyway, let's get back to easier things so that my tiny brain can formulate sentences. Arctic Chief says, I enjoy listening to you because you're probably the most real. You talk about what you enjoy outside of gaming, most of which I can relate to personally, the Disney and most of the fast food stuff. I've tuned into a few different podcasts before yours, but never made it through the entire episode. They stick too much to a script, it seems like, to where yours, as others have said, has well enough structure to be able to cover different topics and not become lost. That's why I come back every Thursday to your show. Also, the game night comment a couple weeks ago seems to have gained some traction. Your mom and brother are also on board as well. Well, thank you, Arctic Chief. I actually really appreciate this comment. When people write in comments like this, I have a hard time reading them because it's like, this isn't really adding any value or thought out there. I don't feel like anyone's listening to this show right now like, wow, thanks, Arctic Chief. Now I understand what Bungie has planned to do with Destiny now that Tencent has invested in their company. Thanks. Now I have a fuller understanding of this industry I love. It's like no one gets anything like that out of these kinds of comments. It just sounds more like me patting myself on the back like, oh, look, someone said something nice. I should read that so everyone knows how awesome I am. So I don't mean that when I read these kinds of comments, but I got to read them because I really, really do appreciate them, and they really do mean a lot to me because, that's the hardest part for me in making this show is that I don't know really if I'm ever balancing things properly. I don't know if like the structure and the coherency is there for me as the person making the show, but that doesn't necessarily translate to the audience. And I don't know if it translates well or if it's if it's easy to grasp for other people, if they feel like there's coherency and structure, especially, or mostly for those who've listened before. I assume it's if you just jump in your first time and it's episode like 98 or something, you're just like, what the fuck is this fucking Martha Stewart fan podcast all about? And then they click off. But for people who have listened in the past, I want to make sure there is a sense of coherency while also not so much rigidness and scriptedness, as you might say here, that it feels like, the show has no life or personality to it. It's just kind of like a news show about Xbox for the sake of having another news show about Xbox. So I really do appreciate that. That is pretty much the kindest compliment you could give to me is to tell me that my show has personality and identity and it isn't just another clone podcast. So I guess what you're saying is I'm pretty goddamn great. So thank you. Ego inflated by 14%. Thank you. Mr. Miggy comes in here and says, long comment alert. So I caved in and bought Black Ops Cold War. It's on sale. I bought the last gen version to save money. Unfortunately, it was crashing my Xbox in ways that have never happened before. After doing research, it seemed that the last generation version of the game will do that on Series X consoles, and I would need to get the current generation version to play it properly. After spending all day downloading the current gen version, even though I didn't buy it, I loaded it and it worked. I deleted the last gen version, it stopped working. Then found out that I had to have at least the content packs downloaded for last gen. Then the current gen version would work again. Long day wasted, but at least I don't have to make a return. I'm enjoying the campaign already. All right, Mr. Miggy, this comment is hurting my brain because so I got Cold War the day it came out. I downloaded the next gen version. It was like my launch game basically for my Series X. So I downloaded the Xbox Series X version of the game, and like others, I've experienced issues with the game where it will just like randomly crash here and there, or just have like a weird lag or something like that. I don't think I have as bad of problems with the game as most people seem to have. Like the YouTuber Actman, I watch him a lot. He was like ripping on the game because he was claiming to have like some really serious issues and bugs with the game on his Series X that I just simply was not experiencing. I beat the entire campaign without any issues. Mostly when I play zombies, it's fine. My biggest issue is like maybe like 2 times a week I'll have like a multiplayer match where it just crashes and the whole game crashes and it goes back to the dashboard on the console. But for the most part, I've been pretty lucky to not have severe performance issues. So it confuses me to all hell when I see this. Like, I don't believe it's a conspiracy because you are one of many people to have had severe issues with the game. So I believe it's happening, and I've had some issues with the game enough to know that there's clearly something to that. So what I don't get here is I have a Series X. I have the next gen version of the game on my Series X. What the fuck am I missing here? Like, you have to go back and download the Xbox One and the Series X version at the same fucking time in order for the game to run properly. Like, who at Activision is just like, oh guys, congratulations on Black Ops Cold War officially being like 3 or 4 months old now. Let's just continue to not fix this glaring mistake that's causing some users to have to download the game twice, basically, in order for the game not to be a total piece of shit. So it's hard for me to like speak to this because I put so much time into Cold War already, but I just haven't experienced this level of like stupidity with it. So the fact that like you had to spend an entire day of your life just basically downloading and deleting various forms of this game, I don't know, it's just absolutely mind-boggling. So first of all, props to you for having the patience to go through with all this. I feel like most people would just delete it and be like, fuck it, I don't even care about my money, just get this game away from me. So props to you for having the patience to actually see this through the end and figure it out. And also, props to the fucking idiot, not you, whoever it is you got from the internet, who had to like go through the science to figure out that you need 2 versions of the game installed on your Series X in order to get this game to actually fucking function. So that's just laughable. But that being said, I am glad to see that you're enjoying the game. I'm glad that you're enjoying the campaign. I think the campaign on this game is fucking awesome. I gotta be honest. I think from a story perspective, it's the coolest Black Ops game since Black Ops 1/2. Probably cooler than Black Ops 2, but not as cool as Black Ops 1. It's just pretty badass. And those last few missions have a really, really awesome twist to it. And that, like, especially that Vietnam level towards the end. I won't spoil it for anyone, but that level is just fucking memorable as all hell. That is like top 5 most memorable moments in a Call of Duty campaign, period. And, considering that Call of Duty has like a billion entries in the franchise, I think that's pretty high praise. So next up, OG Man says, Jesse, you mentioned about podcasts being good when they have structure. They then even mentioned a few other podcasts by name. Just curious, what are some of the video game podcasts that you listen to draw inspiration from? Personally, my top shows my top shows are yours, of course, Podcast Unlocked, Game Scoop, and Nintendo Voice Chat. And for those who are unfamiliar, that's the comments over. For those who are unfamiliar, though, Podcast Unlocked is IGN's Xbox podcast. Game Scoop is IGN's general video game talk, like news podcast. And Nintendo Voice Chat is IGN's Nintendo podcast. So I know that because I used to listen to all three of those podcasts like avidly. So yeah, I mean, thank you for first of all for your comment and your kind words. I like this one a lot because I love podcasts. Like I used to be a big music person, but now like 99% of what I listen to is just podcasts. So I love to talk about podcasts. It's one of that's why I do a podcast, is because I just enjoy them so much. I thought maybe I should toss my hat into the ring, as they say. So as far as video game podcasts go, I guess get ready for a classic Xbox on a tangent here, but yeah, my gaming podcast taste, it's been all over the place over the years. So really, video game podcasts are the thing that got me into podcasts to begin with. It was actually at the very beginning of the Wii U in like late 2012, early 2013. I was just super into the Wii U, but obviously no one else in the world was. The console was selling like shit. And so for me, as like about to graduate high school student who bought a Wii U and felt very lonely because who the fuck was 17 years old and was like, let me go spend $300 on a Wii U instead of going to a fucking high school party and meeting a girl. I was just sitting there, in the back of class, like, oh man, I'm gonna press pause on this awesome Taking Back Sunday song so I can focus on the Nintendo Wii U, my favorite video game console of all time. And I was like, how can I enjoy the conversation of this console, considering the fact that no one fucking likes it, no one cares about it, no one's buying it. There's no community around it. So I just had this weird like brain fart moment. I was sitting there on my iPhone, and this is back when the podcast app is like pre-installed in iOS and you can't delete it even if there's a fucking gun to your head. It's like, fuck you, the podcast app is there to stay. So I'm like, you know what, let's see what this podcast is. I don't even know. Is this like YouTube without the picture? So I click on the podcast app and I'm just like, Nintendo, search bar, enter. And Nintendo Voice Chat was actually the first thing like I found. I was like, oh, IGN, I read them religiously. I read this website literally every day. I've read until pretty recently, IGN was a website I was like on all day, every day from like 5th grade until like 2 years ago. So I used to read IGN quite a bit. So I was like, oh, IGN, I love those guys. Why don't I listen to their podcasts here about Nintendo? And instantly I fell in love with Nintendo Voice Chat. Now, back in those days, the host lineup, and maybe only a few of you will know who these people are, but the host lineup was like, you had Jose Otero, who was the host of the show, and I fucking love Jose. I miss him so much. I was actually just talking with a friend about how much I missed when Jose was the host of Nintendo Voice Chat. You had Per Schneider and Brian Altano and all those guys, and I really, really fell in love with that. Not just, the fact that I was like, oh my God, here's a place where people are talking about like the latest and greatest about Nintendo. It's not just like N64 was cool, I liked Ocarina of Time. It's like actually people who give a shit about Nintendo outside like one nostalgic fucking video game and wanted to talk about something. So like I was immediately hooked. I was like, I found my best friends. I don't need real friends anymore. I can just listen to a podcast, and now I have a community I belong to. And I would just listen to Nintendo Voice Chat religiously. I'd go back into the catalog and listen to old episodes. I'd just live for the newest episode. It was amazing. I was like, yes, please talk about Wii Fit Plus for the Nintendo Wii U. I'm going to go buy a fucking fitness pedometer and clip it to my belt because I don't want to have sex with a woman. I actually want to play Nintendo Wii. And so it was that I'm pretty nostalgic for like the early era of when I first discovered gaming podcasts, because I just really loved like discovering what podcasts were all about and falling in love with Nintendo Voice Chat. That's a very important podcast for me, especially considering that was like the beginning of the end for my Nintendo days. Once you get to like the end of the Wii U, that's really where like I started going from like hardcore Nintendo fan, I'm holding on to this with all I've got, to like, fuck you Nintendo, I'm giving up on you. So like Nintendo Voice Chat is definitely the first. Then I started listening to Podcasts Unlocked because I'm like, well, I also love Xbox, so fuck it. If they have a really cool Nintendo show, I bet their Xbox show is also really cool. So I started listening to Podcasts Unlocked, and especially around the time the Xbox One was coming out, that's when that was like really interesting to me as well. Same thing. I fell in love with that show immediately. I'm still to this day a huge fan of Ryan McCaffrey. I really respect the hell out of that guy. I think he's probably the best representation of like just a clean, all around decent human being in the Xbox game community. He doesn't engage in console war bullshit. He's I think a fair and honest guy. He's just genuinely a likable person. There's really nothing bad you can say about Ryan McCaffrey. But yeah, same thing. I loved that show immediately. Listened to it like crazy. But the thing that was different about Podcast Unlocked is it's like I thought that show was phenomenal. It used to have so much care and effort put into it and so much structure. But I feel like over the years, and this is true of all of IGN's podcasts, but over the years, that one in particular, it just felt like more and more it got like the butt end of the stick there, where it was just like, oh yeah, you only got like 40 minutes to record. So the episodes started getting crunched and segments started getting cut, and the podcast host started rotating a lot. And I was like, I miss the old hosts, so I don't like these new hosts. I feel like the chemistry is constantly being thrown off every week, and like the segments are being crunched down. It felt like that show just started getting like budget cut, if you will, which is just funny because obviously it's a free podcast IGN does. Yeah, it's something about it. It's like over time, these podcasts, just with IGN in particular, just started like just degrade in quality. And I guess I'm getting ahead of myself because I just started listening to like everything IGN put out for a podcast. So I started listening to Game Scoop, and I fell in love with Game Scoop. I think Damon Hatfield's an awesome host. I love his show. And then I started listening to Podcast Beyond, which is their PlayStation podcast. That's the one I listened to last because I'm like, I have a PS3. I don't really play my PlayStation a whole lot, so that's really the one I'm not interested in. But when I finally decided, after months of listening to Xbox and Nintendo podcasts, I was like, fuck it, let's give the PlayStation podcast a try because IGN puts out some great stuff. And immediately I fell head over heels, like in love with Podcast Beyond, because this was back in the day. I feel so bad talking about this because this is so far removed from what the show's about. But anyway, back in those days, you had Greg Miller and Colin Moriarty hosting Podcast Beyond. And that show, like, I swear to God, to this day, like, old school Podcast Beyond was like fucking Oscar nominee quality podcasting. Like, that was the most exciting part of my week. Like, and I don't even care how pathetic that sounds. Like, more so than like going out to an awesome dinner with friends, or like hitting the weekend so you don't have to go to school anymore, or just like I tripped and fell on the ground and sued Walmart for not putting up a wet floor sign, and I got $2 billion. It's like, fuck it. None of that stuff was as exciting or fun to look forward to each and every week as a new episode of Podcast Beyond. Because, dude, fucking Colin Moriarty and Greg Miller, when you put those guys together in a podcast room, it was pure magic. And so just immediately, like from that point on, I was just completely entranced by these guys. But then after a couple of years, Colin and Greg left IGN, and then immediately just started feeling like IGN just started getting new staff left and right. And I feel like the quality of their podcast started dipping. They put less emphasis on giving them the time to really like flesh out all the segments and everything. I started kind of resenting a lot of the newer IGN staff because over the years, I mean, maybe I'm just like kind of an old curmudgeon who likes like the IGN I grew up with and the people that used to work there that are no longer there. But it felt like back in the day that like the IGN people who worked there were like really individual and had a lot of like original thought and personality. But nowadays it just seems like you go to IGN, it's like just a bunch of no-name fucking internet media people who are just like have absolutely nothing to say. Like I was watching an IGN live stream like sometime last summer for some kind of gaming event, some kind of like Summer of Awards E3 type bullshit thing. And I was watching the stream, and I was watching like the IGN commentary, and it was like all these kids I've never seen before because they're all relatively new to IGN. And I'm just listening to like their commentary. I'm like, dude, I know nothing about video games, and I host a fucking podcast about Xbox in my underwear from Orlando, Florida. Like, no one knows who I am and gives a shit about my existence. And I put out better commentary than half these fucking guys. Like, they just say nothing. They just like regurgitate press releases and say like popular things like, oh yeah, Nintendo is planning on putting out another Zelda. Breath of the Wild's a really good game, am I right, guys? Ha ha ha. On PlayStation front, I think they're making a Last of Us Part 2. Well, that's really great because Last of Us Part 1 was a Game of the Year contender for me. A real banger of a game. That's what I always say. On the Xbox front, Master Chief is kind of stupid now, but I guess Forza's a really pretty looking game, huh? Well, Phil Spencer's a well-liked guy, but PlayStation 4 is awesome, and then they just start like sweating, and like you just start seeing like fucking Mountain Dew beating out of their pores, but not really because they're not cool enough to drink Mountain Dew. And all joking aside, it's just like something happened there. I feel like IGN's greatly just waned in quality on their podcasts. I don't even know why I'm telling you this, but that's just a big turning point for me. So I followed through with Colin and Greg forever, and I just anytime they left IGN and went on to do Kind of Funny, and I followed them there. And then Colin and Greg unfortunately had a falling out, and now I follow Colin Moriarty religiously. He still does podcasting on his own company now, and he has a PlayStation podcast called Sacred Symbols he does with Chris Raygun, who's a a famous YouTuber, and they just put out a fucking amazing show. And that's kind of my thing is I've always followed Colin, literally anything he does. He's just I think he's the most interesting and well articulated, and just the most, his thoughts are just the most original and intriguing of anyone in games media or the games industry. So I've always followed Colin Moriarty very closely because I admire the fucking hell out of that guy. I think he's just really, really awesome. But as far as, over the years, I guess, as far as games podcasts go, it's like really that's all I listen to is if it's a video game related podcast, it's whatever the fuck Colin Moriarty is doing, whether it's PlayStation or just anything about video games. I just pretty much whatever he's doing. He doesn't cover a lot Nintendo and Xbox because he pretty much exclusively plays PlayStation. So I kind of find that funny. Is like my favorite gaming podcast is about the platform I almost never play. But yeah, I mean, I enjoy his personality and his format and his show so much, and that's kind of why I do Xbox the way I do it, is because it's like I barely give a shit about PlayStation. It's like the last thing I care about in this industry I love. So the fact that my favorite gaming podcast of all time is about a platform I don't even give a shit about that much tells you that what really matters is the host and the quality of the show and the personality and the likability of all that, and whether or not, that kind of host melds with you, whether the personality is something that you're into and you're like, hey, I'm here for this. I find this fun. I find this entertaining and just like something I can be a part of. So that's what I try to embed with Xbox On, is more than Xbox, more than whatever is in the news. It should be about connecting with the host and the audience, is having commonality, liking things together, having laughs, and having it feel more like a hangout with friends and less like in other news today, Microsoft announced that they made a lot of money while everyone else is very poor. It's like, that's not really a fun podcast. So like a fun podcast is like, hey, we all love Xbox and we'll talk about it, but also Mountain Dew is awesome and I drink it a lot and I'm probably going to die of diabetes. So like, I just think like that's more interesting. So that's really where a lot of the inspiration comes from for me, is following IGN podcasts of yesterday and also Colin Moriarty and people like him, and just kind of seeing how the fun of the show hasn't always been the topic. While the topic is like somehow central, it's also the least important thing. And I don't know, trying to inherit that and have that live on in this show, I think has been really important. But I also just try to make this show as original as possible. Like I promise you, the intention of the show was never supposed to be an hour of podcast of comments and shooting shit, and then we get into the news. The intention was to be a news podcast with some humor and personality. But once the show started becoming like, I keep talking about Taco Bell and they keep listening, it just got to a point where I was like, you know what? Don't try to force the show to be something it's not. Like, if this is what people are into and you're having fun making it, like, let this be Xbox On. Like, who gives a shit if it's going to be a smaller, more niche podcast, because a lot of people are like, hey, I don't want an hour of McDonald's value menu talk before I click onto Xbox news. Like, I want Xbox news. It's like, if I had to sacrifice the potential for this show to grow as a result of, making it a little more of a niche thing, I think so be it, because I have a lot of fun making this show, and it seems like, unless you guys are all liars, a lot of you enjoy listening to what the show is. So I'm going to continue to do this, and I think, I owe it a lot to some of those podcasts for kind of turning me on to that stuff, is about making these podcasts more of places of community and fun personalities and people you would be friends with, people you would hang out with in real life if you could, and I think that's the most important part of any podcast, more so than the topic at hand. But you still do need that structure to have that familiarity to make it something that's likable. It's one thing if we're just here like, hey guys, what do you want to talk about today? Oh, I didn't prepare anything, but here we are. Ooh, Taco Bell's yummy, right? Like, you got to have some structure. You got to be like, okay, here's what you're going to get from this show every week. It's a nice, it's like a comforting thing. It's like, just like you're confident tomorrow the sun's going to rise, you should be confident that Xbox On's going to hit your podcast stream. I'm going to goof off about about comments. We're going to talk about news, but also it's going to be its own thing. And I think striking that balance and having that is super critical. But I mean, with that said, nowadays I don't really listen to anything else in the world of video game podcasts. I intentionally don't listen to like any Xbox podcasts because I don't want the opinions of others and other people's takes on what's happening in the world to really influence my opinions on the company, because I don't want you to ever listen to Xbox On and be like, wow, Jesse's just saying what everyone else says. Like, I would rather you click onto Xbox On and be like, Jesse, that's a really fucking bad take on that story. I'd rather you say that than be like, oh, wow, that's a decent take. Too bad I heard like 7 other YouTubers and 3 podcast hosts say the same exact shit like 2 hours ago when that news broke. It's like you're just saying the same shit. Like I'd rather have bad takes than samey takes. So I try to avoid other Xbox in particular podcasts because I don't want that influence. I just want to kind of let this show be its own thing and have its own run. But with that said, I mean, mostly these days, I try not to listen to video game podcasts outside of whatever Colin's doing. I mostly listen to like podcasts about electric cars. I listen to podcasts about theme parks and Disney. One of my good friends, Hunter, who supports the show, has a handful of podcasts he does. But one of them that I recommend is called Grim Gritting Hosts. It's like a theme park topic podcast that I enjoy listening to each and every week. I listen to some podcasts from time to time on and off about paintball. But yeah, I'd say the podcasts I listen to like habitually, like religiously, would be like Colin Moriarty's PlayStation podcast, Sacred Symbols, the Windows Central podcast, which is not really about Xbox. It's really about like Surface and Windows and like Microsoft, the actual company. I listen to Ryan McCaffrey's Ride the Lightning Tesla podcast. I listen to like Disney Dish podcast, which is a Disney news podcast. So, and there's a bunch of other shows I tune into here and there, but like those are the shows where it's like every week that shit hits my feed, I click immediately. I gotta listen to it. So a little bit of everything, just the kinds of things I like, you know, electric cars, fast food, video games, paintball, Disney parks, all that shit. So told you we're gonna get on a little tangent. You asked me a good question. You asked me a question I like. What do you want from me, OG man? All right, now that everyone's clicked off because they're like, who the fuck is a Jose Otero? Let's jump into Dead Captain James' comment as we kind of wrap up the comment section this week, who says, damn it, it's been 2 weeks in a row that I've commented in my brain but forgot to type it into YouTube. Oh well, the only game I've played the past 2 weeks is Phantasy Star Online 2. It's been a nice change of pace, and Pepsi is the worst soda. Sorry, Jesse. So Dead Captain James, now that you're officially dead to me, I must say, that's awesome that you've been enjoying Phantasy Star Online 2, because I feel like no one talks about that game, but it's a really cool like Western console exclusive that Xbox has, and I enjoyed the hell out of it as well. So I'm glad you're enjoying it too. That's one of those games I always like wish I had more time to invest in, because I'd really love for that to be a regular game in my rotation, but it's like I don't have the time to dedicate to it. I wish I could, you know, like maybe if like Destiny or Halo wasn't a thing, I could find time for it. But like, I think Phantasy Star Online 2 is a really good game, and I hope more Xbox gamers decide to give it a try, even though it is a rather like unconventional kind of weeby-ass game that you wouldn't normally see on Xbox. I think it's a great game. Now, Joe Murphy says, so I need a vent somewhere. I was told that Del Taco is just like Taco Bell. No, it's not. Have you ever heard / or eaten Del Taco before? So do you ever do... Okay, then you ask a couple questions here. You say, also, do you ever do Easter eggs in games? I saw somewhere online about 50 Easter eggs in video games. I love that. I love the show. I like hearing all the topics on your show. Keep it up. Well, thank you, Joe, for writing in. So let's break these down real quick. We'll go through this fast. Yes, I know what Del Taco is, and I've been to Del Taco many times. We had many of them pop up all around Atlanta around the latter years that I lived there. So I've had Del Taco quite a bit back home. We have like one and only one Del Taco in all of Orlando, Florida. It's kind of over like closer to where like Universal Studios is, which is like conveniently 35 minutes from where I live, plus really awful Florida people traffic. So I never want to go over there because Florida people drive like their objective is to fucking stop at every green light. So I just don't even bother making my way out there, especially when I live 4 minutes away from a Taco Bell. But I actually like Del Taco just fine. When I first discovered it, like in high school, I thought it was the shit. I was like, oh man, do I like this more than Taco Bell? And that was just, you know, the ecstasy talking or something, because, you know, Taco Bell was a long love of mine and Del Taco was new. I was going through a honeymoon phase. You know, if I could go back and take back the things I had said at the time about Del Taco, of course I would. But that being said, you know, now that I've grown into it and I'm very familiar with both brands, Del Taco is, in my opinion, significantly worse than Taco Bell. But that doesn't mean it's bad, and that doesn't mean there's not a time and place for it. I enjoy Del Taco. They are both similar in that they're like Tex-Mex fast food American taco chain restaurants that both started in California. But they're different in that Taco Bell is to Tex-Mex what McDonald's is to like burgers and fries, where it's like, you go to Taco Bell, eat a fucking Doritos Locos Tacos, and tell me it's good, tell me it's bad. I don't care. But one thing you can't say about Taco Bell is that there's anything in the world that tastes like Taco Bell. Taco Bell tastes specifically like Taco Bell, just like McDonald's tastes like McDonald's, and nothing else comes close. It is very authentically what it is. It's so unique and so of its own. Whereas Del Taco is, it tastes like fast food burritos and tacos and cheeseburgers because they have cheeseburgers on their menu. And that's fine. That's good. But it doesn't taste authentically like Del Taco. I feel like you could go to any like fast food place that has a burrito and you could be like, oh, that's a Del Taco burrito, or oh, that's this other place burrito, and I'd be like, oh, I can't really tell the difference. It's just fast food Tex-Mex to me. And so Del Taco's good. In fact, they have these fried caramel cheesecake bites which are fucking amazing, but for the most part I feel like it's kind of like fast food Tex-Mex. It's like, oh, it's 2 a.m. and you want a cheeseburger and a burrito from the same goddamn drive-thru. Okay, Del Taco's pretty good. But Taco Bell is, it's the OG. It's original. It's like you go to Taco Bell, you're not going because you want a taco. You're going because you want a Crunchwrap Supreme. You're not going because you want a burrito. You're going because you want a fucking quesarito. Because Taco Bell just don't have some shit. It's got the shit. So yes, Taco Bell's much better than Del Taco, but they're both good. And I've had Del Taco. I wouldn't say they're like comparable in the sense of like, oh, they're just the same thing. It's like, no, that's like saying McDonald's and fucking Five Guys is the same thing. It's like, yeah, it's the same thing if you have a tiny brain and you just think cheeseburger equals one thing, but they're totally different things if you're nuanced and you're a person of great culture and you understand that they're not the same because flavor profiles can be different despite the food item being of a similar background. So I don't appreciate that. What I call it is food racism. It's basically food racism. It's like, oh, all taco places look the same to you. It's like, what the fuck are you saying? You tell me you go to any taco place, it's the same thing? No, man. Just because it's a tortilla with fucking meat and beans and rice and cheese or whatever the fuck it is you put on there doesn't mean it's all the same. Flavors can be different. Things can be seasoned and prepared differently. Don't you tell me it's the same. Anyway, interesting question here about Easter eggs in video games. Do I do Easter eggs in video games? Here's my thing is like, if I'm playing a game, 99.999% of games I play, I just want to play through the story, enjoy the main line, and be done with the game. I don't care about Easter eggs or side content or collect it all. Like, I'm not a Ubisoft fill in the map 100% guy, unless it's like a rare game where I'm like, I love this game. This game is special. I need to do 100% of what this game has to offer. And that's really rare that I find a game like that. So, like, I'm going to play Far Cry 6 when it comes out this year. And I'm going to play the main quest. I might do some side content stuff, maybe, if it's one of the better Far Cry games. And then I'll be done with the game, and I won't feel guilty or ever feel a need to go back and figure out all the secrets and the Easter eggs and complete the map 100%. But, on the flip side, like, I'm really digging the hell out of Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War for some weird reason. And so, like, I've been really focusing on, like, trying to unlock, like, gold skins on my guns and trying to do all the zombie Easter eggs because I'm really enjoying that game and I want to see every corner of what it has to offer because I just think it's that fun. It's resonating with me that much. So my thing with Easter eggs or secrets or collecting everything in the game is if it's like the 1 in a million game that appears every so often where it's like, I love this game to death and back. Yeah, I'll try to do everything and see it all and do the Easter eggs and whatnot. But if it's like a game where it's like, oh, this is a good game or it's just another one of these or I'm just enjoying this for the weekend, no, I'm not going to go above and beyond. I'm not a fucking nerd, which would be seen by my ability to give up on trophy hunting on every game. I feel like if I were going to be super nerdy about these kinds of things, my thing would be trophy hunting or achievement hunting rather. And this is not PlayStation. I would try to be the guy to 100% every achievement list on my console, but I don't do that because I want to go to bed at night. Sorry guys, I thought we were at the tail end of the comments. We got a couple more, but they're pretty much all fast ones from here. With the exception of this one right here, which is from Sweaty Bandito, who says, so glad to see Ubisoft focusing on AA games again. I'm sick of the Avengers Effect, which is an ensemble/cinematic universe film that takes in $1 billion and then spawns a wave of imitations, countless flops, confusion about said flops until some fresh idea makes another billion and rinse repeat. Gone are the days of making a bunch of modestly budgeted films that do mostly well. Now we get studios throwing $200 million at 4 or 5 blockbusters and hoping one sticks. Just give me a solid 10-hour game and I'm happy. Hopefully Game Pass will help encourage risk and variety in gaming. By the way, you should eat Francesina. Holy shit, what is happening? Sweaty Bandito, what is happening? First of all, I can't really speak to your comment other than to say, yeah, I agree. I wish, not just in games, but in movies, I just wish there was more of a like all tiers welcome thing. That's actually what was kind of nice about the Sonic the Hedgehog movie is like, you watch it and like, yeah, it's Sonic the Hedgehog, which is a big franchise. It's a big property, but like they made a pretty like modest budget, small scale movie considering the property they were working with. They're like, yeah, it's just a small story about, a guy who's like sick of where he's from and wants to see something bigger. And most of the movie's filmed like on this like small road trip, nowhere America, in this small town. It's like a pretty modestly sized movie with a modest budget. And I wish we would see more of that in movies again. I wish we'd see more of that in games again. I'd love to see more AA games where it's just like, hey, here's a fun, wacky idea for a game that's about having fun and doing wacky shit, instead of just always being like, we have to push the boundaries of an open world game. Instead of what that means to us here at Ubisoft, here at Nintendo Breath of the Wild, is that instead of having 2 billion things to do on the map, we want to put 4 trillion things on the map. We want you to talk to all the NPCs who will tell you that they'll give you 50 credits if you find their cat from the tree, and then fight the same group of gangsters in Spider-Man for the billionth time. That is a really good idea for open world game. It's going to immerse you. We might even put a VR mode in the game if you do all those things. So it's like, I don't care, man. Just make a fucking fun game. I don't care if the game is short. I don't care if the game is small in terms of like technical achievement. I just want the game to be fun. Sometimes I think fun triumphs groundbreaking or size. So I agree with you there. Now, here I am on Bing, which is the only search engine worth a damn. And I'm looking up this thing that you're talking to me about, the Fredashina, whatever. Let's see if Bing tells me how to pronounce this so I can seem like less of an idiot here. There's no way to pronounce it. Okay, it's not going to tell me how it's supposed to be pronounced. So, a Frenchasinaha, I don't fucking know, meaning little Frenchy or Frenchy or simply a Frenchy in Portuguese, is a Portuguese sandwich originally from Porto, made with bread, wet-cured ham, linguiça, which I don't know what that means, which is a fresh sausage like chipolata, steak or roasted meat, and then covered with melted cheese and a hot, thick spiced tomato or beer sauce, typically served with french fries. So, all right, thank you so much right now for turning me on to whatever the fuck this is, because Sweaty Bandito, I've never heard of this until just right now. And while I can't pronounce the fucking name of it to save my pathetic white ass, I gotta be honest, this thing looks amazing. I'm looking at pictures of it. It looks like someone took a croque madame, the French sandwich with or is that a croque monsieur? That French sandwich where you melt the cheese on top because they're French and they don't know how to make a sandwich right. But that awesome French sandwich with the melted cheese on top, it's like that, but with like fucking roasted beef and ham. It looks like a prime rib steak sandwich with fucking cheese and egg melted on top. This is a sandwich that looks like it was crafted by the gods. I don't know what the Portuguese are doing here, but simply put, this is God's work. I need to put one of these inside of me. If you have a recommendation, I've never seen this on the Taco Bell menu before, so if you could help me find a fast food chain restaurant that's going to give me some facsimile of this. I live in Orlando, Florida. We have a really big Brazilian population here. Does that count? I know they speak Portuguese, so do they have this in any of their restaurants? Where the fuck can I put one of these inside of me on cheat day? This is... For some reason, I also am getting some pictures of girls with their painted fingernails, so that's a thing as well, but I'm not really interested in that. I'm more here for the sandwich. It looks like Chef Boyardee threw up all over prime rib and melted cheese on it. I need to put this inside of my body. What the fuck is this? I highly recommend you guys look into this sandwich. It looks really, really good. So thank you, Sweaty Bandito, for making me hungry while I'm trying to count my calories. Let's wrap up with some quick, fast-hitting comments. Eric Matheson says, I'd 100% be down for a Halo game night. Well, there's just another person saying they want to do the game night. With that said, guys, we're almost at 800 subscribers on YouTube. If we can get the YouTube subscriber count to 1,000, I will consider starting an OnlyFans account to fund a Halo game night. So let's subscribe on YouTube, guys. Let's make that happen. Sam Torres says, the Sonic movie was great. Sonic 2 ending the pandemic will be historic. Great show. You talked a lot about Xbox. Major Nelson should listen up. That's how it's done. Thank you, Sam. I've been trying to say that forever, but Major Nelson does not respond to my handwritten letters. Adam Ziso says, hi, the movie Stalker is gorgeous and a good addition to the game. The game is a bit scary and downright depressing with dark ambient music in the background. Thumbs up. Wish you good health, Adam. Well, thanks for writing in, Adam. I definitely need to check out that movie, but to be honest with you, I literally just now saw The Truman Show for the first time, so I'm really struggling here to keep up with the movie industry. Now, I'm in the crib playing Fortnite with your grandma says, hello again, thanks for the shout out. My name is a reference to something, so yeah, great show again. Well, I'm in the crib playing Fortnite with your grandma. I think you could probably elaborate a little more on that, teasing us with the etymology or the history behind your name. Maybe you could elaborate a little more, you fucking tease. And then lastly, my brother says, will you read this comment next week? Fuck. That's going to do it for all of our comments, shout outs, and everything for this week, guys. Now that, it's a slower news week, but of course we made it an hour into the show and we're just now finishing up with the notes or comments, whatever, fuck me. But remember for next week, guys, do not be shy. Don't be shy. Just do not, whatever you do, don't be shy. Reply. Next, we're going to jump into what I've been playing. But before I can tell you anything about that, I got to tell you what I've been eating. And we'll make this quick because we've already talked a lot about food, but I would like to just say this. I'm still counting calories, trying to lose some weight the unhealthy way by simply just putting in fewer calories, but still eating whatever I want so long as I stay under a certain calorie limit. And I got to say, guys, Taco Bell has been a fucking saving grace. And I know we've mentioned the bell quite a bit already on this episode, so let's be fast here. But they have certain food items you can only order from the mobile app. If you order it from your phone, that's the only way to get it. And so I was like, fuck it, let's try it. It's podcast night. I'm not going home making dinner. Girlfriend wants those Taco Bell French fries. We're doing it, okay? They have this thing called the Power Menu, and I guess this is supposed to be like their more like calorie conscious menu, but it's basically like a rice bowl with chicken, sour cream, guacamole, lettuce, tomato, onion, beans. It's like a little rice bowl like you'd get from like Chipotle or fucking Pollo Tropical or something like that. But it's Taco Bell. And these fuckers are $5 in like under 500 calories for this rice protein bowl. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? It's like a full entree for like not even 500 calories, and it's like a full meal. Like holy shit. So I went ahead and I got a chicken rice bowl here, a power bowl or whatever it is they call them, and dude, these things are awesome. Like, it's not my favorite. Like, it's no chalupa. Let's be honest. It's no quesarito or Crunchwrap Supreme. It's not even a grilled cheese burrito or anything like that, but it's pretty damn good, and it's Taco Bell, and it's super low calorie. So this is going to be one of my new go-to things. Like, you could get this and like some chicken stuffed tacos and still be like in a decent calorie range for like a meal. Like, fuck sodium content. We're not even going to mention that. But like, if all you give a shit about is the calorie content, like, holy fuck. And remember, they have zero sugar Mountain Dew Baja Blast on tap. So it tastes awful, but it's still Mountain Dew Baja Blast. So, I mean, fuck, like, Taco Bell, shout out to you guys for being the best fast food restaurant for people who are trying to count the calories while not sacrificing the most important meal, which is the fast food. So that is something I just want to share with you guys. Now, alternatively, Conviction Chicken is a new like pop-up restaurant that I've been seeing on like the Uber Eats and the DoorDash. I looked into this because I went to a TGI Fridays on my cheat day to pick up a to-go order for some cheat food from my favorite restaurant, TGI Fridays. I love you. And I noticed that they had these signs up for Conviction Chicken. So I look it up, and apparently TGI Fridays has started like a new Uber Eats, DoorDash only little chicken restaurant out of the kitchen of TGI Fridays. So the food is made and operated at a TGI Fridays restaurants, but it's like a chicken restaurant. And the only way to order it is through food delivery apps like DoorDash and Uber Eats and Postmates. So I haven't ordered from it, and I plan on trying it eventually. But like, I just want to put this out there. TGI, look at them sneakily getting into other markets. They say, Jesse, we're not gonna file for bankruptcy. We're not gonna go out without a good fight. I know no one wants to come and eat here, especially in a pandemic, but we're TGI, goddammit. And as long as we're around, we promise to make it Friday every day. And so now they got the Conviction Chicken, and I got to go out of my way and figure out what this thing's all about. Looks good. They got chicken sandwiches. They got chicken wings. They've got, chicken stuff. They got this brownie bar that looks good. So might have to check that out on a cheat day in the coming weeks. Now, that's what I've been eating, or thinking about eating at least. But as for what I've been playing, I know I said I was going to get back to the medium, but hey, at least I'm not playing Black Ops Cold War anymore. At least I'm playing something else. I just got in this weird kick to play Forza Horizon, so I spent the whole week playing mostly Forza Horizon 4, but a little bit of Forza Horizon 3 as well, and I just got to be honest, like, this feels so good, because when Forza Horizon 4 came out at a bad time, like 3 came out at a perfect time where I was ready for a new Forza game, and it was so good when it came out. I played so much of it, but when 4 came out, I just wasn't in the mood for Forza, and I've played the game maybe cumulatively like 6 or 8 hours over the years, but I've never like really sat down and played the fuck out of Forza Horizon 4, and so this week's just been really nice because it's finally like clicking with me, and I'm finally in the mood to really play some Forza Horizon. So I've been going through 4, all the DLC was on sale, so I got like the Hot Wheels or the Lego DLC and everything for like next to nothing. All the car DLC for like, it's like $20 for like every piece of DLC all together. It was a really great deal. So I've just been enjoying the hell out of that game, kind of just ticking off everything on the map, having a great time. And I also went back and played a little Forza Horizon 3 because even though they delisted the game now because of licensing issues and everything, I got to be honest, I think I prefer Forza Horizon 3 just a little bit, and I tweeted out about this the other day. I really feel like the combination of like the Australia setting over the Great Britain setting, no disrespect to our friends across the pond, but like the Australia setting from Forza Horizon 3 was just a cooler setting. It was like a more adventurous and fun setting for a open world arcade racing game than like Great Britain, which, you know, has tons of beautiful scenery, and the way they implement the seasons is really good in that game, but it's just not, I don't know, it's like not as fun and adventurous as a setting. So that's something I can't get over. And then the fact that they had the awesome Hot Wheels DLC in 3, but not in 4 is like, what are we doing here? Like the Lego DLC is fine, but like Hot Wheels DLC in Forza, that's a match made in heaven. Like I want more Hot Wheels DLC. So that, and apparently like there's no Teslas in Forza Horizon 4, but there are in Horizon 3. So like let's get some Teslas in these Forza games, guys, okay? But yeah, I mean, those are the 2 games I've been playing a lot, really enjoying the hell out of them. In fact, I really wish I was playing Forza Horizon 4 right now, more than editing this podcast the rest of the night. But nonetheless, with all that said, guys, let's jump into the news. We're a solid hour and 48 minutes in, and all we've talked about is Taco Bell and how I'm mad at Nintendo and what podcasts I listen to. All right, our first story here is that in the lead up to the release of the Xbox Series X and S in 2020, Microsoft detailed enhancements being worked on for backwards compatibility, such as doubling frame rates on select titles. Now this feature is being officially revealed as Xbox frames per second boost, enabling higher frame rates when playing certain backwards compatible games on Series X or S. The feature debuts with support for 5 games, depending on the exact title. Frame rates can be doubled or even quadrupled in some titles, such as New Super Lucky's Tale, now running at 120 frames per second on Series X. You can check out the initial batch of games below, which is Far Cry 4, which now runs at 60 FPS, which I'm going to have to go back and see because I love Far Cry 4. New Super Lucky's Tale running at 120 FPS, Sniper Elite 4 running at 60 FPS, UCF 4 running at 60 FPS, and Watch Dogs 2 running at 60 FPS. Oddly enough, Fallout 4, the game first shown using the feature in action back in 2020, is not among the first group of games to be supported, though it's possible that additional testing is required. The boost for UCF4 specifically to the Series S, because the Xbox One X original version of the game, which is enabled on Series X, already unlocked that frame rate. So that's a Series S upgrade right there. It is also worth noting that you don't have to have the game in order to take advantage of this feature, so it will also work if the game is being played through Game Pass. Microsoft states that more games will be added to FPS Boost very soon, while later in the spring, players will be able to get visual indications that the game is being played with FPS Boost, and will have the option of toggling the feature on or off per game, on a per game basis rather, as long as the title being played supports FPS Boost. This on and off toggle per game will also be added for auto HDR features as well. So to my friend Hunter, who is not happy with the auto HDR in Red Dead Redemption 2, it looks like you'll be able to turn that off eventually. See, Daddy listens. He remembers and he listens. All right, so this is a really, really cool feature that we're getting here on Xbox, and it kind of makes me want to go back and play a little Far Cry 4, which is my favorite Far Cry, just because this is the kind of stuff I like to see more than anything. More than auto HDR, more than like, oh, we fixed the resolutions a little bit. So it's closer to 4K. Now it's 3.8K. I'd rather see this stuff because I want games to run smooth. You know, it's like, it's really nice to have a game look pretty, but I think this is the bigger shame, especially when going back and playing older games. It's like, oh, this game holds up. It's still fun to play, but like, 30 FPS. Oh, it performs like shit. So if you can get the game, you know, it's one thing again to have like auto HDR. It's like, oh, it looks a little prettier and everything, but it's like, to have the game perform better, like, oh, it's smoother, it's easier to play, the motion's right, like, it's not choppy and ruining my ability to fucking play this game now that I'm used to and accustomed to modern gaming. Like, the fact that we're adding that kind of shit in through an update that just retroactively makes old games better, that's the stuff I like to see. That's like this is why we're here for Xbox kind of thing. And I love that Xbox continues to become this platform where it's not about, you know, oh, I'm playing a Series X game or a Xbox One game. It's like, it doesn't matter. It's like, I'm playing an Xbox game, and my new Xbox makes my Xbox games look and run new and good because it's a new Xbox. And that's what this whole thing is about. It's not about, is a game backwards compatible? Does it support this feature, enable this? It's literally just about, like, you own an Xbox and you play Xbox games on said Xbox, and the newer and the more powerful the Xbox you buy, the more and more it should make all the Xbox games look and play better. So that's what I love about this feature, is it's really true to that mantra of, like, blurring the lines of generations. I think more than anything, when you hear Phil talk about the whole, like, blurring the lines of generations and the generation to end generations, of course, to a large extent that's just PR talk. We don't fucking know. Maybe there'll be a new generation of Xbox and they'll one day cut a hard line between the Series X and the whatever the next thing is. We don't fucking know. But at least as far as, like, defending that kind of argument or that marketing speak, I think these are the kinds of moves that really do justify those words. And it's because, again, this is what blurs the line. It's like, we think about backwards compatibility on old consoles. It's like, oh yeah, the Xbox 360 played a bunch of old Xbox One games, but it would just emulate an Xbox original on your 360. It was like, okay, it's nice, it's cool, you can play the game, that's great. But now we're just getting closer and closer to this whole, like, getting rid of generations things, because it's like, yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter if you bought a 1, a 1X, a Series S, a Series X. It's like, you got your Xbox, you put the game in, whether it's like Grabbed by the Ghoulies or fucking Lost Planet 1 or Rise Son of Rome or Halo Infinite. It doesn't matter what generation, what game it is. Whatever you put it in, it's going to play on that Xbox, and it's going to optimize the looks and feel of the game based on what the capabilities of that console are, much like a PC. It doesn't matter, it's not like, well, you're playing a Dell XPS, so XPS doesn't support Red Dead Redemption 2 on PC. You got to get at least a Lenovo in order to play the fucking Red Dead Redemption, and it's like, man, it's a console exclusive. You can only play Gears Tactics on the fucking Surface Book, but if you got yourself one of those newfangled Razer books, you can play the whole Gears of War franchise. It's like, no, man, it's not like that. It's just like, how powerful is your computer? What kind of graphics card you got in there? What kind of processor you got in there? It's like, cool, you can play any PC game. You just got to have decent enough specs to make it run appreciable. And that's kind of what we're getting on Xbox. It's like, nah, it doesn't matter what you got. It's like, do you have Xbox? Yes. Okay, it plays Xbox games. How well it plays them, it's just depending on, like, you got the really expensive one, you got the middle of the road one, but, like, you're gonna play your games on Xbox. It's just, I love this whole thing of just blurring the lines of the generations and just making everything accessible and just making, like, the expensive ones run things better, but even the affordable ones still make everything play and look good. And it's just, I don't know, it's just a win-win thing for all. And additionally, it just makes Xbox the definitive place to play, especially when you consider that Xbox is in the unique position. I'd say PlayStation's pretty much in a similar spot, but specifically Xbox more than anyone, where it's like they just haven't changed the gamepad enough over the years or made any of their games really reliant on other control methods, save for, like, the 3 Kinect games that are, now dead, like, completely forgotten. But they haven't really, like, changed the controller in any way whatsoever, or the way we interact with and input with games. So we have this added benefit on Xbox where it's like, it doesn't matter how old that Xbox original game you're playing is, it works just fine with any modern input method for Xbox. And PlayStation mostly has this, with the exception of, like, some, like, touch bar bullshit they've done here and there, which you could argue they could fix that kind of stuff. But, like, Xbox has this clean thing where it's like, it's like computer again. It's like, oh, you got a keyboard and mouse? Cool, you can play anything. Doesn't matter what keyboard and mouse, you just got to have that. So the Xbox is the same way. It's like, oh, you got a gamepad? Cool, you can play literally anything. And because there's that coherency and that consistency over the years, it's just like, you just got to have an Xbox to play Xbox games. There's no magic trick. There's no stipulation. It's not like, Nintendo will literally just reveal that they're putting Zelda Skyward Sword on the Switch, which is amazing because that game would have been stranded on Wii with its motion controls, but now they're able to emulate the motion controls with the Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons. But if you got the Nintendo Switch that doesn't have the Joy-Cons, it's just a tablet only, they had to come with a whole new control scheme to make it work. And it's even a miracle that that's happening, because you would think, wow, that game's completely dead and stranded on Wii now because Nintendo keeps making different controllers every generation. And you just think about that stuff, and it's like, Xbox never has to deal with that. Xbox is just like, hey, here's the same controller, it's just refined. Here's the same console, it's just beefier and with better specs, It's like, it's always Xbox. You just new ones make it look and run better. Old ones are still Xbox. It's all Xbox. And that's exactly what these kinds of features and stories tell me, which is that Xbox is really a one-stop platform for just all gaming content. And I love it, and I love seeing them double and triple down on this. And I'm here for it. I'm excited for it. I'm excited to see what games they continue to add these things for. Hey, guys, this is my recommendation. Make Sonic Unleashed run at 120 FPS on Series X. Please and thank you. Okay, our next story here is about the new Xbox wireless headset, which makes me so freaking salty and sad, but nonetheless, let's jump into it. So I somehow deleted this from my notes. Let me pull it up again. So the other day, Microsoft basically just was like, hey, surprise, new Xbox headset. And basically, they announced official Xbox wireless headset coming out on March 16th for $99. So it is an official Xbox branded, made by Microsoft, wireless headset for Xbox. It works on Xbox One, Xbox Series consoles, and also on Windows and mobile devices. So you can use this on your iPhone, your Android, your Windows computer, your Xbox, anything you want. Anywhere you can play Xbox, whether it's through xCloud or PC or Xbox console, you can use this headset. It's $99, has an adjustable mic. It has these turnable knobs on the side that are really reminiscent of actually Microsoft's Surface headphones, which have like the little dials that spin so on the ear cups. So it's a lot like that. It's obviously has Bluetooth support, auto mute or retractable mic, so the auto mute can block out noise from like soft breathing or background noise, so it only picks up your voice when you're talking. It's supposed to have high quality audio, 15 hours of battery life, 30-minute charge to get 4 hours of battery, or a 3-hour charge to get a full 15-hour battery. It's like super affordable for what it is. It's a crazy awesome looking, awesome quality, awesome value headset here that they've released, and it kind of came out of nowhere. So I don't know. This is I don't know what to really say about this other than it's so weird that it's taken them this long to really get into this. I know they've put out other like Microsoft branded or Xbox branded accessories like headsets and stuff in the past, but they haven't really done one in a long time. They haven't put this much effort into one in a long time, which, now that I think about it, is really weird considering that, over the past few years, they've been making Surface headphones and earbuds. Like I literally use Surface wireless earbuds every day. It's my earbud of choice. And Microsoft's been investing in this technology for Surface, but they just haven't been using it for Xbox, which is so weird considering that gaming headsets are such an important part of gaming in general. So it's a natural step to see them finally release this. I just can't believe how long it took for them to really approach this. But I guess at the start of a new console is a pretty decent time. But yeah, these things sold out instantly. They went live on Amazon and the Microsoft Store, and they were just out in seconds. So hopefully, if you weren't able to get one, I wasn't able to get one, hopefully able to find them in stock soon. I'm sure they'll keep making them. I'm sure these will be very successful. So excited to see how they pan out when they come out, if people are liking them. But I'm really intrigued by these. I was actually in the market for a new gaming headset because my Turtle Beaches that I bought right when the Xbox One first came out are really shitting the bed now. And I was looking at those new Razer Xbox headphones that they just put out. They put out two versions of it. The one for PC and Xbox is like $150. So I was thinking about buying that one. I was kind of like on the fence a little bit about it. Wasn't crazy about the price. And now that these are announced for $99 with all the same features and it's official Xbox gear, like I'm 100% sold on it. I cannot wait to get my hands on these as soon as they come out. Maybe I'll just go out the day they come out and see if they're available at Best Buy or something. I don't fucking know. But anyway, I mean, these just look awesome. I don't know what to say. I think the design's awesome. It has some really unique functionality. It borrows from the best features of Surface. It's a crazy good value. It's the official Microsoft or Xbox branded one. It's going to work everything from everywhere from your Xbox to your Android phone to your computer. So no matter where you're playing Xbox, you got your headset compatible. I think this looks like one of the best deals in gaming. And I'm confident that they can nail this because I don't know what it is, but at some point, like 10 to 15 years ago, Microsoft just like sat down and was like, hey, we're even though we're called Microsoft, we're going to just start getting micro hard and just make like kick-ass hardware. And they've just been making some of the best hardware out there. So the thought of them making an official Xbox headset, I have a lot of confidence in because Xbox is great hardware. Xbox controllers are great. The Elite Pro controllers are great. Surface hardware is great. And a lot of the Surface team works with the Xbox team these days on these kinds of things. So I wouldn't be surprised to find out that there's a lot of surface ingenuity in these headphones, and for $99, official Xbox gear, that sounds extraordinarily promising. So I don't know. I'm pretty damn excited and intrigued to see these things once they come out, get my hands on one and see what people are thinking about them. But yeah, I mean, if you're in the market for a new headset, I mean, fuck, this is look no further. This looks like a pretty damn good value and a really awesome product. So we'll keep our eyes on that. But moving on, speaking of inputs and controller functionality, Microsoft also released some more information about their commitment to accessibility in gaming. So the article from Windows Central reads, over the past years, accessibility has become an increasingly important part in game development to help bring games to as many people as possible. Xbox especially has been a massive advocate for better accessibility in gaming, and then today, or this week, Microsoft and their gaming accessibility team announced updates to their gaming accessibility efforts with a new program for game developers. In 2018, Xbox launched the excellent Adaptive Controller, which allows players who might have difficulty using standard controllers to build customized setups that suit their specific needs. In 2020, Xbox launched the Xbox Accessibility Guidelines, a comprehensive series of best practices to drive accessibility in gaming forward and help game devs make their projects as accessible as possible. Today, Xbox announced that they're updating their Xbox Accessibility Guides with tons of improvements to make them easier to use and easier to understand, and even more thorough for devs. Improvements include clear language, improved overviews, scoping questions and focus areas, educational background information, and guideline examples. However, beyond these crucial improvements, Microsoft is also launching an industry first, a platform-provided program that can test Xbox and PC games against Xbox's adaptive guidelines and provide game devs with feedback on how to improve their games in an effort to make them more compatible. This includes screenshots, examples, reproduction steps, and information about which certain aspects of any title that may not be accessible to gamers. Xbox's new program will also provide information and relevant links to accessibility and inclusivity and technical documentation, industry experts, and nonprofit accessibility organizations. Finally, gamers with disabilities are included in the testing program so that every game tested against the guidelines is also played by members of the gaming and disabled community. These vital testers will also provide their own feedback and insights into what can be improved in the games. So this is really cool. I think this actually, as someone who's, as someone who, gets by just fine with a regular gamepad and doesn't actually have much of a personal utility for an adaptive controller, this actually puts to rest my one big criticism of the adaptive controller, which is, it's awesome that the adaptive controller gives people the tool and the foundation to build whatever it is they need to make games accessible and playable. But at the same time, that doesn't solve all the problems. Hardware can only be so much of it, and a set of guidelines can only do so much. At some point, you got to give developers who maybe aren't familiar with these things the tools to help them kind of, easily guide through this whole, hey, how do we design games in a way that makes them more accessible, and how do we make things in such a way that, not only people have the hardware to customize and work around the game we've created, but also a way that makes our game kind of mindful of and catering to the types of ways people might need to modify their controller setup in order to enjoy this experience, if that makes sense. So I think this is a really, really awesome step, because, and most importantly, much like Microsoft's famous, insider programs that they do for Windows and for Xbox, this provides an insider program for gamers with disabilities to be like, hey, we're testing this feature. You guys thought this was a good implementation, or that we should do this way. We're playing it. Here's our feedback. Here's what works. Here's what doesn't work. And ultimately, this is going to be the kind of thing that makes this not just a nice novelty that's helpful for some, but a viable feature that works for all gamers with disabilities. So I think this is a really, really awesome thing, and it's been crazy cool to see Microsoft just really lean hard into this. And I hate talking about this because this is the kind of stuff that makes me feel like I'm some cucky paid off Microsoft fanboy. Listen, Microsoft's not a perfect company, and they've done tons of shitty things, and let's not put them on a pedestal. They're a massive corporation that's in the business of making money, and they fucking condone basically child slavery by being like any tech company and having their products produced in China where like children are exploited for slave labor, and factories like Foxconn where they create the Xboxes and Surface products that we so enjoy here, in more privileged parts of the world. So I'm not trying to paint Microsoft to be like this perfect hero, and obviously it's a massive corporation with tons of good and bad actors. So I just want to preface with, like, I'm not some Microsoft nut job fanboy who's just gonna like jerk them off at every corner, but maybe this is my own ignorance. I don't know how to see what they do at Team Xbox with, gamers with disabilities and the adaptive controller and this initiative. I don't know how to look at this in any way other than like, this is a great thing that makes me like really proud to love Microsoft and be part of like this fandom and this like enthusiasm, this enthusiast kind of corner of the world, because this is the kind of stuff I love. This is why I love Microsoft. This is why I love Tesla. Is I love companies that are kind of forward thinking, innovative, and it's not just about like making the same shit and selling it to you a million ways. It's about thinking like, how can we meet the needs of today's world? And it's crazy to think of like gaming as like this massive form of entertainment that's just blown up and everyone loves it, and it's more lucrative than the movie industry and all this shit. But you think about movies, it's like pretty much anyone can enjoy a movie. You just fucking look at it and you just watch. You just listen and hear. If you're deaf, you can read it because subtitles. It's just like, it's this thing that's just like available to all, right? Movies. But gaming is such an active, input based, medium of entertainment, no fucking shit, that it inherently brings all these caveats and just challenges to it that other forms of entertainment don't deal with. And the fact that it's like, you think about it this way, like, gaming has gone on for as long as it has without these kinds of things really being properly and like loudly addressed. It's kind of mind-blowing. It's like, think about all these gamers with disabilities that would struggle to play like an NES game or Super NES game or an N64 game or an Xbox original or an Xbox 360 game. It's like, what have these gamers just done throughout these years? They've just been like, oh, gaming looks fun. Fuck me, I can't really enjoy it properly. It's kind of crazy to think that we're just so happy to like innovate in gaming in terms of like, oh, we made worlds bigger and prettier and consoles have more power and now your controller vibrates in new ways because that's what next gen's all about. And it's like, cool, these are all nice features and nice cool ways to step forward, but it's like, we're not really innovating and making gaming like this thing that's for all and really meeting the actual needs. Like do gamers desperately need triggers to have like new forms of rumble and for games to be like in 4K all the time? It's like, no, those things are really nice and we like them and it's cool, but it's not super necessary. It's like, but is there an actual need where there's like swaths of gamers in the world who cannot enjoy games because they have specific disabilities that limit their usage of like a traditional gamepad? It's like, well, yeah. And so the fact that like Microsoft not only, it wasn't just like a one-time like, we'll throw you a bone here, we made this controller, go fuck yourselves, figure out what to do with it. It's like they didn't just make that and walk away. It's like they're like, no, we gotta like keep running with this. Like, here are some guidelines, here's a testing program, here's an insider program, here's a way to offer your feedback, here's a way for a community to come together and really like not only just make their games around this, but to get feedback and then to start thinking from a development standpoint about these things from like the beginning, from like the genesis of a game idea, rather than like shoehorning accessibility features in at the end of a game when you're optimizing and prepping it for launch. So I just the thought that like this is something that Microsoft didn't just do and leave. This is something that they're like actively, constantly working on and caring about and invested in is so exciting, because it's like, no, it's not like a new Halo game I get to play, but it is something that makes this medium accessible for all and really brings it into the future. Because, if there's no such thing as like an entertainment form or like a product of the future or something that's like available to some, it's like, it's like gaming shouldn't be this thing where it's like, oh, well, you gotta be young and agile enough, or you gotta have perfect hand-eye coordination, or you got to have perfect vision, or you got to have the perfect 10 finger setup and in perfect muscle memory and like just you can't tell a person like you have to have all these requirements, all these specific requirements to be a gamer, because then at some point it stops being this thing for everyone and therefore it ceases to matter to everyone. So just the fact that Microsoft, no matter how big or small of a change this may seem like to most people who just get to play games regular no matter what, these things really fucking matter. And to see them take this incredibly seriously and not just be like, oh, here's a tool, but like here's a program and here's more tools and here's ways we can help other people use our tools and give feedback, shows that like they're actually committed to making a difference in this regard. And I think this is the kind of stuff that's really exciting, because this is the kind of stuff that truly makes a difference and makes these things more inclusive and welcoming to all. And I mean, wouldn't that be the better story of gaming in the past, in recent years? Not that like the Xbox Series X makes games look really pretty because it's super powerful, but rather it's like, thanks to like this program and the accessibility controller and services like xCloud, it's like we're able to serve gamers with different abilities. We're able to serve people in markets where buying a $500 home console isn't a really viable option. We're able to service people in places where it's like we don't even have access to home consoles. We only have access to like smartphones and computers. So this is the stuff that Xbox does that like makes me like, in a weird fanboy sense, like proud to be a Microsoft fan, because it's like I see this and it's like I acknowledge that this isn't necessarily for me. Like I don't really have any personal use for the adaptive controller. I don't really give two shits about playing xCloud because I'm happy to play Xbox in my apartment, on my couch, on my TV. But I love that these are things Xbox is passionate about and that they're actively working towards, because it's like only once it's available and accessible to all is it really a viable, like, is it really a welcoming medium in form of art and entertainment for everyone to enjoy. And I don't know. This is the kind of stuff that gets me excited over that. But again, I want to preface with Microsoft's not a perfect company, because I don't know how to say that without me sounding like, well, today's episode of the podcast is sponsored by Microsoft. Give me money and I'll say good things about your brand. So I don't want it to sound that way, but that stuff, I don't know. That's really feel good news and really exciting stuff for everyone, in my opinion. But let's move on with some less cucky takes from me. So Halo Wars 2, which launched in 2017 to decent amount of praise with a fun story, great villains, and a large spread of online modes, blah, blah, blah. The game also got well-received DLC with a Horde-style mode, complete with additional campaign beats. Beyond that, though, the game hasn't enjoyed the best support from Microsoft over the years, despite having a passionate fan base. In 2019, fans of Halo Wars started a petition to further updates of the game, and Microsoft responded by saying its focus was entirely on the Master Chief Collection. Microsoft also said that they may revisit the franchise in the future, but in an update on Halo Waypoint this week, Halo developer 343 Industries reiterated that there are no plans for a sequel or for updates in the Halo Wars universe at this time. Their quote reads, "We always strive to be open, honest, and transparent with our community, and we know that many of you have been waiting, asking, and hoping for news of the future of Halo Wars 2. We want to acknowledge that we've heard you, and make sure that you know that this feedback and these topics do indeed get brought up to the right folks across the studio for further evaluation. In the past, we've noted the publishing team was fully focused on Master Chief Collection, and we had no current plans to return to Halo Wars 2. Now, with all the titles on PC, we've seen these questions popping up again through, although 343 publishing team is still working on more Master Chief Collection seasonal content, along with a variety of features and further improvements. It's not always easy to be open and transparent, particularly when we expect it's not the answer that the community wants to hear, but we want to give it to you straight. 343 Industries has no current plans to further Halo Wars 2 work, including content updates, balance patches, bringing the title to other platforms, or a new game in the series. We will, however, continue to monitor the game and ensure that everything is working as expected. Yes, we did use the word currently because it's the truth. As of today, there is no plan for the development team to re-engage with Halo Wars 2, and we aren't working on a new game in the series at this time. But we're specifically never going to say never because, well, who knows what the future may bring." End quote. The news will come as a blow to those who have remained passionate about the game, hoping for updates, balances, tweaks, and bug fixes. Alas, though, it looks like we're not going to get them now or in the near future. First thing, I think this is a really commendable way that they address this. I love the way they basically just like straight out spoon-fed it to you. They're just like, guys, right now the answer is no. Halo Wars is dead as of right this second. Is it dead in 5 years? I don't know. Who knows? And the reason why I think they say that part in particular is because I think Halo Wars was dead after Halo Wars 1. I think the odds of there being a Halo Wars 2 were slim to none. I think Halo Wars 2 was kind of more than anything born out of like a need for more first-party content, and like making a Halo Wars 2 was kind of like a not too big of an undertaking thing to farm out to like a another studio that does like RTSs, and that's kind of why we got Halo Wars 2. That's my general guess here on why we ever got that. But here's the reality of the matter, guys. Halo Wars 2 did not perform well. I know people like it critically. I know fans of the game like it. Listen, I'm a huge Halo fan. Halo's like my fucking shit. Halo Wars 2 is awesome. I even recently replayed through the game and all of its DLC, and yeah, I stand by it. Halo Wars 2 is fucking awesome. I love how it's going to have such a massive impact on the Halo universe from a storytelling perspective with the introduction of the Banished and Atriox and all this shit. It's so cool that the events of Halo 5 and Infinite are so intrinsically tied to Halo Wars 2. I love the Halo Wars universe. I think those games have no right being as good as they are on console, and I would love for there to be more Halo Wars, but like, let's just be super honest. Like, outside of passionate Halo fans, no one talked about Halo Wars. No one bought it. No one played it. No one talked about it. This was not a big game. It was weird in 2017 when Halo Wars 2 came out, because it was like, hey guys, there's a new Halo game out today, and no one said anything, no one gave a shit. That's not supposed to happen when something with the Halo brand comes out on shelves. Like, when a new Halo product comes out, the world's supposed to stop and take notice. It's that big a franchise. So the fact that Halo Wars 2 kind of just came and went without so much as like a peep from anyone outside the Halo community tells you that this game did not perform well. Like, and I know that's just anecdotal, and Microsoft isn't talking here about much else, and Game Pass skews everything, but if we're being super honest, Halo Wars 2 bombed. It did not do well. It doesn't make sense for them to go back and be like, well, the game made like no fucking money and no one gave a shit about it, but come on, these fans really want to see more of it. I think they're stuck in this place of like, we can't be doing this because no one gives a shit about it. But this is the part that trips me up the most, though, is Halo Wars 2 came out like just about a year before Game Pass came out and really became a thing. So what I always wonder is, what if Halo Wars 2 was like a game that launched alongside Game Pass? What if it was like the game to start Game Pass and to sell Game Pass? What would the story have been like then? Or better yet, what if Halo Wars 2 was a game that came out like a year or two ago when Game Pass was starting to really pick up steam? Because at that point, we would have gotten a better... And I think maybe the best thing to compare this to, actually modern-wise, would be Gears Tactics. Like, how is Gears Tactics doing? Because that game launched into Game Pass. So is that game doing really well? Or are a lot of people on Game Pass like, fuck yeah, let's give this a try. Wow, this game's really good. Like, because I feel like Gears Tactics is Gears of War's equivalency to Halo Wars, right? So if Gears Tactics is a game that might not do well on its own, but thanks to Game Pass is really, really excelling, then I think that's the kind of anecdotal evidence you need to justify Halo Wars. But the weird thing about Halo Wars is the first one obviously came out way before there was ever a Game Pass, back on the 360 in 2009. But then the second one came out a full year before Game Pass really became a thing. So we'll never know what it was like for Halo Wars to benefit or not from Game Pass. But the way I think of it is like, Halo Wars is exactly the kind of game that you look to Game Pass for. It's like this whole like, I wouldn't spend $60-$70 on that, but I would definitely play it if it was in Game Pass, or I would definitely give it a shot if I could try it for free. And that's why we have Game Pass, and I think that's the perfect kind of game for it. So it almost seems funny in a way to be like, yeah, we're giving up on Halo Wars at a time where Game Pass is our main selling point, because that's the thing that could really get eyes on Halo Wars finally once and for all. But at the same time, it's like, hey, I mean, how thin do you want to stretch the Halo team, okay? It's like, we got all this stuff to focus on. Halo Wars, for the second time in a row now, has proven itself to not be a real lucrative deal for us, and right now we gotta get all hands on deck focusing on making Infinite not suck, because there's a lot riding on this game. And so it's this whole thing of like, we can't be thinking about Halo Wars right now. It's not about whether or not you want it or you love it. I understand all those things, but we just can't afford to be dividing our attention in so many places right now, and of all things be focusing on Halo Wars, a franchise that we all love but doesn't do well. It doesn't bring in the money. It doesn't bring the attention. Like, we just can't be focusing our efforts on that right now. Halo Wars is something you do when Halo as a franchise is on cloud 9 and everyone loves it and you can do no wrong. It's like, why not? Here's a fucking extra spin-off game. Halo Wars. That's how Halo Wars 1 came out, and I'm sure that was, where that game probably got the success it got was from that. But Halo Wars 2 came out in such a different state. Halo Wars 2 came out after Halo 5 when everyone hated Halo, after Halo 5 when people were like, Halo's not as good as it used to be, it's not as relevant as it used to be. Halo Wars 2 came out a year before Game Pass. Halo Wars 2 came out at a bad time. And the only thing that should have helped Halo Wars is it came out kind of when there was a first-party drought. And even then, it still didn't make much of a dent. And it came out like early in the year, so like after the holiday game releases. So again, I think it's one of these things where like we can't talk about Halo in any other way other than Halo Infinite right now, because it's just got to be all hands on deck on getting that game out the door, making it the best it can be, making sure we don't botch the Halo franchise at this point. And then once Infinite's out the door, once it's had a successful launch and everything's gone well, then we can take a sigh of relief and start thinking on, you know, the rest of the Halo universe. But again, right now it really has to be a whole like, hey, put that small money shit on hold right now. It's about Infinite. So that's really the only way I can look at that. But it really sucks. I know we all love Halo Wars, so whatever. But speaking of Halo, according to Halo Waypoint and from Windows Central, in a Halo Infinite update from this past week, we got some new information kind of about the Halo sandbox and Halo Infinite, and 343 was detailing some more information about that, and so they were going in depth about the vehicles and their kind of the way they've been revamped for Halo Infinite, talking about vehicle effectiveness and reduced in dynamic ways as players damage the vehicle and kind of how those things affect the vehicle. So for example, players that shoot Warthog's wheels will be able to make it harder for drivers to drive the vehicle, to like steer it and handle it. And this big shift away, this is an intentional big shift away from Halo's usual vehicle mechanics, but it sounds like the gameplay interaction will be a lot more interesting. They're trying to make it more dynamic and make vehicles more of a dynamic part of the battle. So some information on grappling hooks was also detailed. Specifically, they stated that players who are skilled enough can use the grappling hook to latch onto a Banshee and then hijack it from its pilot. So that will just be the coolest thing in the world to see. Additionally, they also confirmed that the grappling hook will be able to pull weapons to the player using it, which will no doubt be an incredibly effective power when power weapons are appearing on the map, using that grappling hook to snatch that bitch out of thin air. If every pickup is as useful and as interesting as the grappling hook, then we can have a pretty balanced experience there. But that is a little bit of a red flag for balancing. Finally, a major piece of news they wanted to share at 343 is that they are planning to add lots of weapons old and new to Halo Infinite after its launch. So even though the game will only launch with a specific number of weapons, they will be adding plenty of weapons into the sandbox over time, meaning that the game will constantly evolve and rebalance itself. Kind of like Halo 5, which I know a lot of people hated, but that excites me because I like when things get added and things change because it's fun. But yeah, so those are some updates coming to Halo Infinite. Not really much to talk about there other than to just kind of read it out so you're aware of it. But with that said, guys, that's going to do it for all of our major news stories of the week. Now we will jump into the important enough news stories important enough to make the podcast, but not important enough to warrant their own discussion, of which we have a small handful, so we'll just blast these real quick. The first one's that Halo developer 343 announced in a blog post that they do plan to have the next test flight for Master Chief Collection go live on February 18, 2021. The biggest highlight for the flight will include a new map for Halo 3 that was originally in Halo Online, but never in the actual proper Halo 3 game. It looks like the map will be set in some sort of UNSC outpost high up in the air amidst severely icy glaciers. So that map looks fucking awesome. Can't wait to see more of that when it actually comes to the game. Also, next up, according to the report from The Verge, Microsoft stated that Microsoft started testing xCloud through the web in its upcoming public preview. It's already been known that xCloud would be coming to the web, but now we have screenshots of it in action. And The Verge also notes that the preview is getting very close to rolling out soon. Next, Windows Central reports that 4A Games is working on a free next-gen upgrade to the 2019 game Metro Exodus, and the developer has shared what specifically players on Series X can expect from this upgrade, which is 4K 60 FPS on Series X, and on Series S, they're targeting 60 FPS at 1080p. So that game's getting a little bump there. And then next, a report, rumors running around this week suggest that Ubisoft may be changing the name of the upcoming Rainbow Six Quarantine to Rainbow Six Parasite. Although Ubisoft has since spoken up about this, saying that Parasite is only the internal development name for the game, and no official name change has been made as of yet. And lastly, Game Pass is getting some new games and losing some games in the coming days, so let's go through that real quick. So coming on February 18th, Code Vein will come to Game Pass on PC. On February 18th, also Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire Ultimate Edition will come to console and cloud. On February 18th, on cloud, console, and PC, Wreckfest will come out, which I just tried for the first time the other day. That game's actually pretty cool. On February 23rd, on console and cloud, Killer Queen Black will come out, which I played on Steam once forever ago, so maybe I'll give that a try again. Dirt 5 is coming to cloud, console, and PC on February 25th, so that's probably the biggest one here. That's a pretty big get. That game just came out in November, remember that. So that's already a pretty good one from Codemasters. Elite Dangerous comes out to console on February 25th, and lastly, on February 25th, PC will be getting Super Hot Mind Control Delete. Additionally, we're not just getting games, we're of course losing a few. So on February 24th, Dirt 4 will be leaving Game Pass. So we're getting rid of Dirt 4 to get Dirt 5, which is fair enough, I think. And then on February 28th, we're losing a few other games. On console and PC, we're losing Momodora, Reverie Under the Moonlight. PC is also losing Mother Russia Bleeds and Oxenfree. Oxenfree will also be leaving console as well, which sucks because I never finished that game. The Jackbox Party Pack will leave console, and Vembrance Cold Soul will leave console and PC. So that's going to do it for all of our news this week, you guys. Podcast is running a little long, which is, of course, no surprise, even though it's not a terribly long news week. We just got overindulgent in the comments, and by we, I mean me. So, new releases for Xbox this week, guys. From the Xbox blog, the Xbox Wire, we got 9 new games coming to the console this week. We will go through these real fast by, of course, naming the game and talking about it out of context based on one screenshot and misrepresenting it entirely. On February 17th, we got Kick It Bunny, which is a game about physically harming bunnies, which is really not up my alley because you know how much I love bunnies, so fuck that game, boycott that game. Void Gore comes out on February 17th. This is about going into the void to share your gore pictures, which people used to do a lot on Facebook, which is disgusting. But if you do it out in the void, no one will see it, so you just kind of look like a fucking perverted, crazy fucking idiot doing that. Anodyne 2 Return to Dust comes out February 18th. I like this. It looks like a fucking 3DS game. And then Boom Blaster comes out on February 19th, where you play as like some anime cat shooting robots. Speaking of cats, Eefy comes out February 19th, where you play some Fortnite-looking orc dwarf character, but for some reason there's a lot of water, so it looks like he might just drown because he's probably too dwarf-like to swim. And then Gravity Heroes comes out February 19th. This game looks pretty cool. And then Puss comes out on February 19th, which is some game where there's like a picture of a cat screaming like Godzilla, but the screen is shaking and colorful, like some kind of EDM remix. So there's a lot of cats in here. I don't know why. They made it looks like some kind of like rhythm game that's an homage to cats, which sounds like something that'd be pretty popular with my generation. Rodent Warriors comes out February 19th. It is such a shitty looking indie game that even Indiana Jones wouldn't want to give it a try. And speaking of indie, Speed Limit comes out February 19th. It's one of those games where it's so low pixel count that the characters all look like blobs, and you shoot the guy on the train, which looks like a ripoff of Call of Duty. So just go play Call of Duty. Activision could really use the support. Now, Games with Gold reminder, February is an awesome month for Games with Gold, so please download all these games. For the rest of the month, you got Gears 5, Resident Evil Remake, Dandara Trials of Fear Edition, or it's not Resident Evil Remake, it's the port of Resident Evil, but whatever, it's like the HD port. Dandara Trials of Fear is available February 16th to March 15th, so get that now. Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb is available, well, it's not available anymore, you missed it because you're a dumb bitch. And Lost Planet 2 is available now through the 28th, so download that game as well. But with that said, guys, that is it for our podcast this week. We've completed it. We've an hour and 55 minutes in. I got to edit it down a little bit. I'll be staying up tonight and doing that. But while I'm staying up editing, you know what I'm going to do, guys? I'm going to think about each and every one of you. I'm going to think about your names, the comments you've left over the years. And if I don't know your name and if you've never left a comment, I'm still going to think about you because I can feel you. I can feel your energy. I can feel you're there on the other end listening. I know what you're using. You're using those Raycon earbuds that you got from using the promo code from that YouTuber you watch. You're using the AirPod Pros that you got for Christmas, and you said to all your coworkers and friends, "Oh, I know the AirPods are stupid. I didn't want the AirPods. You see, someone got them for me for Christmas. That's why I have them. I wouldn't spend $200 on these. No. I got these as a gift. I didn't buy these. Fucking liar. You know you wanted AirPods. Just own it. Admit it. I can feel you listening to me through those AirPods. I can feel you through your car speakers, listening to the Xbox On podcast. And you know what I want to share with you as we have this connection in this moment, in this time? I want to tell you something my father once told me. He said, son, power your dreams.